What can you do with a stiff photo? I'm going to show you how Contrapposto can bring more life into your drawings as we continue to balance anatomical accuracy with gestural grace. Alright, so let's look at, because it's not really Contrapposto now, but I'll make it so. Contrapposto basically just means counterbalance. The idea that once we tilt our hips and have a weight-bearing leg, then we have beauty. And we certainly do. Contrapposto changed the art world. So I'm going to overdo it. We have this model and she's very stiff looking. So I'm going to push around here like this. Just going to work on the legs. And I want to feel that high waist. And I'm going to give her more Contrapposto. This is actually a good example of how to interpret the reference we have. So I'm going to take that leg and do this. Find the bottom here. And just feel that shape of the tube going in to the hips. Remember, high hips. I'm just working on the legs. And feel this shape here. So feeling that leg coming over, and I'm overdoing it. Now look how the leg comes in toward the body like this. It's not like that, which is a cartoon idea. So with that in mind, you can see with the power of Contrapposto, that means I have a high and a low here. And I can pull that thigh around like this, and chase those rhythms like this. And what I do if I have a skinny model is I put a little bit more curve on. And if I have a model that's curvy, I take a little bit off. So I want to be sharp all the time with my drawing style. I want to make sure that I can stylize all the time. So I want to feel that shape here and come up and find that iliac crest. So once we've got the iliac crest and we know where the pubic bone is, which is sort of coming up a little bit here, where the pubic hair usually is. So we've got this shape. And the second we've found that, we can come across where that pubic hair would end, and we have the great trochanter, top, which means I can come up here and say, well, okay, well, the rib cage must be doing something like this. So I'm really pushing it now. I'm pushing that idea of two shapes again, coming up like this and like that, to be this. So I can go from here and say, well, if this is the iliac crest, then we have a pinch side. So the pinch side is here, and it'll be on the weight-bearing leg. So this leg that's up high, so high hip, go higher. That's the weight-bearing leg. And on this iliac crest, there's a great muscle that comes down from the crest itself. It's called the sartorius, and it comes around underneath the knee like that. Gives us that beautiful, beautiful bow right in there. I'm going to push this leg in tighter again. Look at all that pentimento, how wonderful pentimento is. So that means I can come for this long curve, come down for the iliac crest, push in for the great trochanter, push out, and back in again, and go straight over to the other side and do the same thing. So we have those beautiful hip shapes. Now this leg is lower. This is an awkward one because she's put her foot up high. So normally this knee would be in a different position. I'm just going to put it in here, like an ice cream cone, and go down for the other one for a lower ice cream cone. So we've got these two cones, and we've got the sartorius, and that just leaves now one last thing, and that is where the rectus femoris attaches. And that's three finger like this, or you can think of a 1970s belt like that with a buckle on it. That'll take you to where the leg actually bends. So once we've got all of that in, then we've only got one other thing to worry about, and that's the adductors. So the adductors are where we add to the body, so we're pushing in this way. So we add, and that's a mnemonic, ductors. And the abductors is where we pull away from the body. So if I was to take this leg and do this, like a ballet dancer, then we have abducted. We have pulled or kidnapped the leg, and that gives us a curve on the outside. If you find little mnemonics like these helpful, I use plenty more in my new course, Fantasy Figure Drawing Wizardry. We'll go over more than just legs and get you up and running in no time to get you illustrating all kinds of fantasy subjects. Join me at proko.com/Patrick Jones. We've also conjured a 20% discount for the pre-sale, so teleport over to it if you want those savings. So once we have that, we have this wonderful moment where the biceps femoris attaches around from the back, and then we've got the calves going underneath and around to the back as well. So the calves are one of those weird muscles that we see from the front and the back. So everything is going from high to low like this. I've got a weight here and a weight there. except for the ankles, they're doing the opposite. They're doing this. So addressing that weird idea of the foot hovering, very strange. But what I love about this is that we can push out for that great toe canter, come down, come in, come out, come in. Look at that lovely flow that we just got there, that beautiful business coming all the way down. Now we want to put some straights and curves on them because at the minute everything is a little jello, and I'm going to refine this. This is the great thing about charcoal, is that it is basically a very soft way to find a parameter. So I can go in there and actually be way off, but can come in and out of those lines. So the great thing about gestural structure is that, yes, you do sacrifice the structure. There's no doubt about that. You know, these legs are quite thick, but I'm going to really enjoy thinning them down. And by doing that, I'm enjoying the whole process. I'm enjoying finding that puzzle and replacing it, putting it back together again, and learning so much because of all of that. Whereas if I was to size measure that, it would take forever, and I might get a bit dulled by it. So this makes me feel dull, structure. That's who I am. You might love structure, and that's great too. But I'm a gestural person, and so I would rather do this, lose the structure, and come back again with it if I need it, but stay gestural the whole time. So I'm going to come in with the structure now, and the way I'm going to save anything that's tricky is I'm going to go from this idea. What's on the other side? So always be holistic. Ask yourself all the time, what is the other side doing? So if I come over here and I say, well, this is the pinch side. So that's going to go in, it's going to pinch. The 10th rib's going to be here, the 11th and 12th is going to be here. And then we're going to push down to the iliac crest. We're going to pause for a second. Ask yourself where the pubic hair is. Come down, push out to it. And then push down as a straight and in. So that is an incredibly complex moment that just happened there. But because we have lots of mileage, we do it lots and lots. An amazing amount of stuff just came in here because of an amount of drawings that were done in the past. So I'm going to go in here and find the sartorius. You can actually see it on the model. Have a look. You can actually see the shadow of the sartorius. And it's coming down. It's being covered by the other one. So I'll go over here, find the sartorius. And you can actually see it flex on the model. Have a look. I'm going to come down and bring it right onto the knee like this. And be aware that the same thing is happening on the other side. And this pubic area here pinches. And it pinches quite straight. So I'm going to go straight up to that point where we bend our legs. Remember that belt? That belt, the top of it is the crest of the hip. And you can actually see on these underpants that she's wearing, they're too high. So they're not giving us the crest of the hip because they're going up to the navel. The navel's up here. So the navel comes in after the idea of the egg. So if you have the egg idea here, it encompasses both the rib cage and the upper abs. So it's kind of this shape, has that shape to it. And the navel comes after that. Now, a female navel is long. You think of it as a question mark, whereas a male navel is horizontal like that. But as a woman gets larger and larger, then that question mark becomes the same as the male idea. So, coming over for this hip, this is high, this is lower. Remember, the hips are fused from that earlier demo. So we're coming across here and we're coming down lower. And look what the pinch does. It makes this side shorter and this side longer. So this is where we do all our bending. So I want to come over here to the other side, come down to the hip. There we are at the hip. Come in for the great trochanter, come out for the great trochanter, push down onto the biceps femoris. And look how beautiful that is. And then we can come up to the gastrocnemius, come down, feel those beautiful, beautiful lines that you get from that. She's a skinny model, but I love the Magnus adductor. I like to flesh that out. And we can take this moment now of the sartorius and just soften it. Now kill the mechanics of it. So basically we don't want to show the nuts and bolts. So the nuts and bolts, you can already guess what I think of those. That's ego. It's great for a demo, but you don't want to show it in your drawings. It's just showing off. So you want to make it look like magic. Kill the nuts and bolts. And getting rid of that belt. Look how beautiful that immediately becomes, because the belt is also the place where we would see the shadow of the upper edge of the lower abs. So if I take an eraser and just do this, you can already feel the dimension of that upper ab coming down as a curve. So from the side, we would have the rib cage doing this. We would have the hips doing this. You can see this. It stands wonderful robo beam demos. And that means from here, the upper abs, come the lower abs, and they push in. This moment here, where the pinch is this moment here. And so the high-waisted swimsuit is doing this. So I could throw a leg out like that, for instance. You'll get an idea where I'm going with that. So this and that are similar. So we want to get that feel. Let's get in there and pentimento this. So we have that. So it's not really an egg, you know. It gets pulled apart up here by the scapula and becomes this straight. You throw an arm back from here. You can see what I'm talking about. Like this, and you can put breasts on it. So it has that idea. So the more you push out from the back, the more feminine it becomes. So I'm looking at this area here. There's this area here. So it has two moments. It also has on the pubic bone here a little ridge right there where it becomes, once again, a highlight. So there's a hierarchy of light here. You get creases here, and we get an accordion effect where this is wider based on these obliques. So accordion. Got to find where the pinch is and where the stretch is. Stretch is here. You can tell by the length of those obliques. I also love to give it a hard edge right on that moment where that rib cage is. Just such a beautiful thing. And get that magnus adductor in. It's such a great muscle. It's so feminine. Now when the knee bends, it becomes a harder edge. This edge, the ice cream cone idea. So there's the ice cream, there's the cone right there. And that's enough really for you to note a knee. Don't really need much more than that. And people will read it. And then you can go in and complicate it. You know, in fact, you can mess up the knee so much and it still reads. It's really an incredible piece of architecture there. It can be really quite beautiful. So don't be frightened of it. Don't go, I don't want to draw a knee because it's not feminine looking. You know, gnarl it up. The knees are very pronounced on a woman. And when they wrinkle, they really wrinkle. So you could say the entire moment of the knee is where the biceps femoris comes in tight like this. And the calves come out, they're going up high. But this moment here is where your knees fit in. And the end on that kneeling point right there. So that's the patellar ligament right there. The patellar ligament is the part where the reason why the knee gets so structured when we bend our legs is the tendon up here stretches, but the ligament doesn't. So it pulls the kneecap down. So as we kneel, that becomes a big box shape. The ligament will not give. So you go in there and just mess that up. And also there's bursa in here as well. So there's little sacs of water in here. And the old masters would just simplify that. That's probably the only fault I can see in the old masters is they oversimplified that. They sort of leaned on it like a hack would. You know, they just knew it worked. So if you look at the old masters' work, their knees are very simple. They look like that. That should just be the jumping off point. So I'm going to just leave it like that. And if I come into render, then I would play more and more with that. But remember, pentimento is your friend. And remember, you're pushing out here and you're pushing out here for hips. And as long as you're below this point here, there, you can go as wide as you like. I'm just going to have a look at that in a second. And I like to do that. That's over the top. That's Uber. That's Burn Hogarth. Pushed it to the limit. But it gives you style. You start to see your style develop like that. So all this is very simple. I'm keeping it simple so you can understand it. And when you start to paint, that's about as much paint as you would put down. And you'd start to mess that paint around. You'd play around with it. You know, like I would go in there now. Might put some highlights on top of that knee, for instance. Like that. Highlight just underneath the patellar ligament. Top of the knee. Basically where things meet the body. The magnus adductors are. Where flesh meets flesh. You get a highlight just underneath the occlusion shadow. So where flesh meets flesh is the occlusion shadow part. So nothing's darker than that in that given area. And don't be afraid to sculpt. You know, I'll go in and do that just to feel the fleshiness of the whole thing. The worst thing you can do, really, I think, is try and be too perfect. That's an exercise in itself, but I want to mess it up. You know, feel the crease of flesh, for instance. Play around like that. And then you get into the realm of the idea that this is dry oils. There's your magnus adductor. I like to put a hard edge on the inside of the calf. Also give it some room to breathe, too. Don't join every line. So I like a curve followed by a straight. So here's a curve, followed by a straight, followed by a curve, followed by a straight, and ending with a curve. Here's a straight, followed by a curve, straight, followed by a curve. Now, you might just go, Patrick, that's what it is in real life. Well, if you don't know what it is, you'll tend not to do it. So it is what it is in real life, but you have to look really hard. And if you push it more, it becomes more stylized. And that's not ego. That's knowledge. That's a different thing. So you're bending it. You're making it a little different based on that idea. So if you love something, you can push it harder. You might love how that knee is and go in and mess it up a little bit. And it looks more like a knee the more you mess it up. But still based on that cone and that ice cream on top. Okay, so going back in again here, and I'm just going to mess up those knees. So every once in a while, just take your fingers and try not to be wedded to perfection. And just mess around there, because that's what flesh does. And you can see that's much fleshier and nicer. Fleshier and nicer. There you go. There you go. Do that. You can't lose. Let's see, can we put a shadow in? You know, I'm thinking about how would I go now if I was just let loose. I'd like to do some massing. I like to feel, you know, every once in a while you're doing these things and you forget you're supposed to be an artist. I'll feel that tibialis anterior pulling around. Feel the flow of it. Just let it go wild every once in a while. You know, feel that toe in a sock. Feel this wonderful moment coming up. You know, you can keep adding to it if you want, but it's just an idea. You can put the breasts in there now. If it's tilted this much, you can put the breasts in to fall like this and up like that. You can really get a feel for the breasts are most curved on the outside. And then it curves across the rib cage. So that's why you get this shape, like that. Curve across, get this shape. So you're thinking about the rib cage all the time, creating the shape of the breasts. The breasts only become the real, true, natural shape if someone bends forward and they hang forward. Apart from that, they're being shaped by the rib cage all the time. You think of the rib cage being in here, but that's the best example for how gravity affects the breasts. Now I'm going to play the contour game here. It's really worth doing. And so the idea is that you try and imagine this in 3 dimensions. So I take that moment there and I say, well, the breasts are probably the most badly drawn part of the female anatomy, even though these seem to be the most simple forms, because most students aren't thinking of the hard form underneath and how it reshapes the breasts. So rather than draw these head lamps, which is laughable, and yet I see it all the time, the nipples are never center. They're always a little off center. They're a little lower than high. So they're not only just not in the middle, they're off center. They're here. So for these breasts to work, they would have to be like this and like that. You see how that's much more realistic. Now the thing is, so that makes the breast this shape as a general shape. And that means the part at the top is higher, and the bottom part here where the breasts are only occupies the lower part. And you'll see nipples down here very often, right at the very bottom. So I'm going to take this pencil and just play that contour game. Oh, it's slidey. So it does this. The rib cage is going back in space like this, and then evens out along here like that, and then becomes this. So it's going all the way back here, like that, in time. And down like this. And here, I'm going to play the simple contour game on this side, which basically means that that leg is coming toward us a little bit, like this. And this part here is going away from us a little bit like that. But the complicated contour game would be going across the adductors, up to the rectus femoris, and then down the side like this. That's a different game to play. And always be aware where the iliac crest is and how it relates back in space to the other side like that. So a tailored dummy, if you can think about it, they're actually pretty good because they give you the very, very basics. So those dummies you see where people put costumes on and stick pins in it, actually pretty good to look at for this kind of idea, what you're doing here. Let's see if it works on it. Yeah, that's perfect. If you missed my last video on photographic distortion, go check that out for more tips on how to improve your drawings from photo references. And if you want to unlock more of my figure drawing secrets, your next quest is to join me for my fantasy figure drawing wizardry course. We'll cover all types of fantasy archetypes as you learn portraiture and figure drawing from me. You can see for yourself at proko.com/Patrick Jones.